The USA men's hockey team complete the double feature, defeating Canada 2-1 in overtime to capture their first gold medal in 46 years, completing the men's and women's double feature, defeating Canada in the world's greatest ice game. In the NFL Combine starts this week. The Bears are working to solve their issues on the field, while off the field, that new stadium. Someone please just end the saga, please, please, please. In the NBA, the Chicago Bulls tankathon is still rolling. 3 beautiful losses over the weekend. We'll discuss, at least try to. Commissioner Adam Silver says tanking may be nearing an end. You really think so? We'll give you our thoughts. In baseball, the Cubs are 0-3, while the White Sox are 3-0 after their first 3 spring training games. And we'll have Old School TV Monday as we conclude our celebration of Black History Month. And in college basketball, the Fighting Illini's trip in Los Angeles ends in ugly fashion. That and a whole lot more as the Monday extravaganza of Second City Sports starts right now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drop into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! For Robert Jr., his 4th of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide. Up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Binnington. No chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Getting what a pass. Buzelis with the fade on the drive.
Tuesday motions up. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb Rose, middle of the field, love the catch. Breaks away the 30. Love the 20. Love the 10. Love the end zone. Touchdown Bears!
Welcome to the Monday extravaganza edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena B, which is she. Cindy Brown here, you know it's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CKid80. Once again, it's CKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I'll give LaKeena the full powers to give you dumbos to Bill and Beer Boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must shout out to our live game. That's LIVE Live Entertainment Game. That's checking us out live in living color right now at Sports Zone Chicago's YouTube channel at 12:21 p.m. Central Standard Time. But as always, much love to the replay game that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's YouTube channel, YouTube and Facebook channels. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will always provide.
We'll be providing you the best here on Second City Sports. Now, of course, we will talk, the Bulls as the takeathon continues. They've now have lost 9 in a row. So, I guess you got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Bears. If you're a Bulls fan, you want to be able to say that, hey, they're tanking. So we'll see if they can break that streak. And the rest of the weekend in the NBA, in college hoops, as the season winds down. The Illini had a 23-point lead, and let's just say bringing in a little nostalgia of the some things that happened out the UCLA, but also Duke got a nice win against Michigan in a late season matchup out there in DC. So sports media news, as ESPN makes another big hire for their tennis coverage. Old School TV Monday as we wrap up Black History Month. Featuring another Black sitcom. We'll talk about that as we wrap that up for this month. And of course, the NFL Combine is commencing later this week. We'll see. And also, the Bears, well, they may lose one of their top guys. They'll break out stars from last year. We'll talk about that and so much more. But first, it's only appropriate that we talk about the U.S. men's hockey gold medal game that commenced last night. Last night, in Italy, yesterday morning here, as the U.S. men break a 46-year drought of winning the gold medal. A golden goal by the Devils, Jack Hughes from the Devils, as be more appropriate there, and as they beat as they beat Canada, their old nemesis, 2-1, and it's like I said, the first gold medal in like 46 years for the U.S. Men. It's also the first time that both the men and the women's Olympic hockey teams won gold in the same Olympics. Of course, the women won a few days ago. Just a lot of, I'm sure the ratings were very high because it was on the big ABC networks, one of the last events at the Olympics. I'm sure, we'll see. I'm sure we won't find out the ratings probably until probably maybe like tomorrow. But a lot of history was made and a lot of the emotional moments. We'll get to all that. But Sid, what do you think about the game and everything that transpired after Jack Hughes' golden goal?
I knew it was going to be a classic tough game because Canada, this is their sport. Hockey is religion up there in the country of Canada to the north of us. In the United States, as you mentioned, ever since the Miracle on Ice, coming up short the last few Olympics, 2010, 2014, and then what happened 4 years ago. This is one of the best teams, obviously, that has been assembled in recent memory for me personally since 2010, but you knew it was going to be a tough physical game. Canada trying to rough it up early, but the USA stayed with it. Boldy scored the first goal of the game. I actually fell asleep in the second period, but outside of Canada tying the game, I really didn't miss much. That third period was your classic playoff type hockey type game when both teams not giving an inch. You have to earn for everything you got, and of course, in overtime being 3-on-3 like it is in the NHL here in the United States, the USA took advantage of Canada's mistakes in defensive coverage, and like you mentioned, Jack Hughes brought it home for the United States. As I tell people all the time who don't watch hockey until the playoffs or watch very little hockey, the closest thing to a playoff scenario for hockey during the quote-unquote regular season is during the Olympics because these players are playing for something bigger than them. They're not just playing for each other. They're playing for the pride of their country. And you see the blood, sweat, and tears of all the players that win or lose in these Olympic games. So when you saw the U.S. win in overtime, you saw all the long faces for Canada. It's not just that, oh, we lost, we'll get it tomorrow. I'm sure they felt the weight of the shoulders. They didn't want to, they were respectfully accepted their silver medals. You could tell that the weight on their shoulders was weighing very heavily on them after they lost in overtime yesterday.
Now, if you look at, they had it wasn't like Canada didn't have their chances to put that game away. I mean, if you saw, there was someone posted a snapshot video. Nathan McKinnon, of course, who you probably say is the leader in the clubhouse for MVP in the NHL from the Avs. He had a wide open net in the side. Just about a few seconds before, of course, the breakaway from the Jack Hughes started, of course, that led to that golden goal. He could have had that shot pro. He could have been the hero, of course, as Sidney Crosby was 16 years ago in 2010. Remember that gold medal game against the United States. So I'm sure. Look, Canada had their chances late. Celebrini, had a couple of chances as well. Sam Bennett too for Canada. So it wasn't like Canada did not have their chances. To put that game away and perhaps win their own golden goal too as well. But you gotta say Connor Hellebuck from the Jets, the Winnipeg Jets, he had 41 saves. He including a lot of those. Canada was very aggressive, near him. And look, you gotta give him credit for keeping the U.S. in it. He's definitely the MVP of that game, in my opinion. And they kind of kept you kind of felt like, okay, this is one of those U.S. Canada games where, okay, let's just hope Canada doesn't kick our butts and such. But Hellebuck definitely played a big factor in keeping the U.S. in it in that game.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up his name because that was going to be my next point. Kind of hell, but I think I kind of mentioned them on our show last Friday, leading up to their previous game. But he's been standing on his head throughout this tournament, and you saw that yesterday as he collected 41 saves. And let's give the defensemen for the U.S. Credit to all six of their blue linemen, as they call it in hockey, the defensemen, the blue linemen. They really stuck it to the forwards, including Connor McDavid of Canada. Get into the passing lanes, making sure that Connor Hellebuck didn't have to make multiple saves when he had to. So the blue liners for the United States, give them much credit as well because they played a very good defensive game. As I mentioned before, you knew Canada was going to try to rough it up, and they did early, but U.S. Stayed calm. And they scored the first goal. Kind of got rattled a little bit in that second period, but they stayed with it and then found that break in overtime. And let's give some love to USA head coach Mike Sullivan as well. I know John
Mhm.
Tortorella is one of the assistants, and he gets some love too. But Mike Sullivan, really for his strategic maneuvers during yesterday's game, you had to give him some credit as well.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago, LaKeena McGee, Cindy Brown with you. And if you think about it, this gives hopefully this will give Gary Bettman because I know that a lot of this is his decision making to keep the NHL players in the Olympics because you can tell there was a lot of interest. The ratings are very high even for the non U.S. Canada games because you see a lot of some of these NHL players in a lot of these countries. I think hopefully this will give them a incentive to keep the NHL players in the Olympics because I feel like the games are a little bit more exciting that way. I feel. And look, Connor Bedard, I know he's probably somewhere thinking, "Hey, I could have gotten that second goal for Canada," even though I'm sure he appreciated the rest. I'm sure he would have been like, "Hey, I could have gotten a couple of those goals there that Canada had." And I think this is sort of a good thing. Hopefully, this will give the NHL incentive to let their guys keep playing in the NHL, especially in Winter Olympics in 4 years in the French Alps.
And you know who also feels that way of Conor Bedard, as you suspected, Sidney Crosby, who got injured in their last game on Friday. He didn't participate yesterday. You saw the pain and look on his face as well.
Mm-hmm.
That this possibly could have been his last Olympics as well. And I'm sure he was saying to himself, if I was in there, I probably would have gotten that goal too. But as you mentioned, with the interest of hockey, as you said, let's not forget about the Four Nations tournament that we saw last year around this time during the All Star break. That's why there was not an All Star game last year because of the Four Nations tournament. We saw U.S. and Canada again doing battle, so that momentum from last year carried over to the Olympics this year. And like you said, saw interest in you saw interest with people, not just in your die-hard core hockey fans, but not traditional hockey fans too. I'm sure they looked at it, and as here in America, LaKeena, during the Olympics, whether it's a traditional sport where we usually dominate or not, if we're in the final round, we're going to cheer on our home country, and that's what happened yesterday. And I was going through social media yesterday just for a little bit, and you've seen people all across the country hosting watch parties and having celebrations at their own residences, and just the unification of USA pride and just coming together as a nation. Yes, we always have going to have issues outside of sports. Well, we do have some issues at times in the sports realm, but when you work it together, you coming together as one. No negatives. Stop. I know we mentioned them on our show last Friday, but let's give them some love as well because they were very dominant as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of notes here. Brock Nelson from the Avalanche. If you remember, his grandfather Bill and his great uncle Roger were on that team that won the gold for Team USA in 1960. His uncle Dave was on the squad, of course, the Miracle on Ice squad that won in 1980. He actually has a young son, so I'm sure the pressure's going to be on him to come in and perhaps maybe it will keep up with the family tradition so he can deal with it. That the family got their third goal, well, their fourth goal yesterday there, but also too, you saw Johnny Gaudreau, of course. We talked about it last November, a couple years ago when he and his brother, of course, were killed. Because of a drunk driver. They were hit by on their bike and on their bikes, by a car. But you saw his presence everywhere. You saw his family was there, his wife and his parents and his kids. They actually took the kids with them, as part of the photo with the gold medal. That was a really sweet moment. They had his jersey, skating around the ice after they got their gold medal. So that was a really sweet moment there as well. And you can't help but get a tear up if you saw that moment yesterday.
Yeah, class act by the USA men's hockey team by bringing Johnny Grujo's two children out there to redo the on ice photo with all of them holding up their gold medals. I don't know if those two young kids will realize the moment now, but I'm sure their mother and then the members of their family will tell them about it as they get older. What kind of impact not only that those two young children they have on Team USA, but what Johnny Hockey, the late great Johnny Hockey Goudreau, had on those players on that team now in the game of hockey. But I thought it was a class act by those young men yesterday. As you said, you saw Austin Matthews and everybody else hold up their jersey after they won and received their gold medals and waving the flag around the ice. Like you said, I got choked up too. I'm not being funny when I say that, but I'm glad they didn't forget about him. I know his jersey was hanging up in their locker room before every game. So you could tell they used that as extra fuel as well. So as I mentioned before, when you're playing in these tournaments like the Olympics or the Four Nations from last year, it's something greater than you. And we recognize LaKeena at, just covering the game of hockey. These guys do not act like they're above anybody. They understand that this game, they play this game as a privilege, not a right. They're very humble, but for the most part, and it's a culture of hockey is it brings everybody together. It's truly a team sport. You got to not just depend on the guy next to you, but you all working for a common goal.
Yeah, and I think you said earlier. Shout out to Mike Sullivan, of course, the coach. I think he kind of it wasn't like a Herb Brooks kind of thing because I know people try to kind of recreate, but it's sort of one of those things where he basically said, if you guys saw it, in between the periods where. Look, he said, look, we're the U.S. We can win this game and such. Yeah, John Torrell is more the fiery one, but Mike Sullivan is kind of like that quiet leader. So he definitely showed a little bit of that quiet leadership yesterday in that game. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully the NHL players will be able to come back for the Olympics in the French Alps in 4 years, and hopefully they can build this momentum up. I mean, look, we know that this will equal a big raise boost for the NHL when they come back later this week, but even still, I mean, this will give it a little bit of a buzz and keep it at the forefront, at least for the next day or two.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. One more note before we break for the bottom of the hour. Shout out to Kenny Albert, AJ Malesko, and Eddie Olczyk, Chicago's very own, for a great call on NBC. And I had the chance to watch the live stream here on my laptop. Shout out to the folks on the CBC Hockey Night in Canada for their coverage as well. Not Jim Houston, he retired. Chris Cuthbert and former NHL goalie Mike Johnson, they had to call for the folks in Canada on the CBC. They did a great job as well.
Yeah, so I heard a little bit of that yesterday. You could tell the disappointment in their voices.
Yes.
When Jack Hughes scored that golden goal, but look, hopefully I think I think that team was too top heavy for Canada. I said that when we announced it. Not saying that Bedard should have been on the team, but I felt like they kind of went a little bit too, like top heavy with their contender. They should have mixed up a little bit, but hey, we don't pick the team, so I'm sure they're going to be smarting over that one for a little bit.
Yeah, Bedard's going to get his chance in 4 years. Like you said, they let the NHL players back in, which they should. If they do, like I said, Connor Bedard will definitely get his shot. He'll be over 21 by then. I think he's 19 now, 20, about to turn 20. So in about 4 years, he'll be about 22, 23. So yeah, he'll definitely get his chance.
All right, so we're going to really quick break. As from the high of the U.S. men's hockey team to the lows of the Bulls and their tankathon, they've now lost 8 in a row thanks to their loss to the Knicks yesterday, and another milestone for LeBron. Even though it was a losing effort, they're losing effort unfortunately against the Celtics, but we'll have that and a whole lot more. McGee City Found. Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. We go to Hardwood talking NBA coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Oops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey Maggette, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on the Monday Extravaganza edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
We're going to dive into the Bulls Tankathon, yay! And the rest of the NBA action from over the weekend, including the statue of one legendary head coach, Pat Riley. For this half hour, so if you have any questions or comments regarding the Bulls and or the NBA at large, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
The Bulls have now lost 9 in a row. They have not won a game this month as they lose both to the Pistons and to the Knicks yesterday. Ironically, both these teams are coming off a second of a back-to-back. But, the Bulls, held with the Knicks for a little bit, but the Knicks showed why they're the better team right now. 105-99. Cat had 28 points and 11 boards, a double-double there. Jalen Brunson kicked in with 19. Landry Shamet had 16 off the bench. On the flip side for the Bulls, 15 from Montes, 12 points apiece from Jalen Smith and Isaac Okoro. And, that was basically all she wrote for that one. Bulls fall 24-34. They host the Hornets tomorrow at the UC. So maybe the Tankathon will continue. Who knows? But But yeah, that was just. I saw the highlights, and thanks to our buddies over at GN Sports, our buddies, both friends of the show, Jared Payton and Chris Bowden, they were there last night. Our other girl from the show, Kayla Sharkey, she was out there covering that game, and yeah, it was. The first half was actually okay. They actually stayed with it for a little bit. Like I said, they were both coming off a second of a back to back. But yeah, the Knicks kicked into gear, and they were that was all she wrote for that one.
Yeah, the Knicks got a dose of reality going into the locker room at halftime. They came out like game busters in that second half. But LaKeena, you forgot to mention one important statistic from last night's game on the side of the Bulls. Shout out to our good buddy CHGO's Big Dave Watson, Patrick Lee Williams, in 28 minutes. We're not making this up, folks. So I'm reading live right here. In 28 minutes of action last night, 10 points, 1 rebound, but 8 assists. His best all-around performance in a while. I'm using air quotes here. So, yeah, Patrick Lee Williams actually did something last night besides scoring. He dished out 8 dimes, as the kids would say. So, I just hope that Big Dave was very proud of him last night. Shout out to our buddy Brandon Schutz in the chat. We see you, my friend, and we're going to discuss your Houston Rockets coming up in just a moment. They had a big game on Saturday at MSG against the Knicks. We'll discuss that coming up. But as far as the Bulls are concerned, as we said before, we'll say it again. It's an audition to who's going to be on this team next season. You talk about Colin Sexton, and you talk about Dillingham, and you talk about Yasser Bully, and some of the other guys there trying to get some extra time. Josh Giddey still making his way back from injury. He only had 6 points last night in 23 minutes of action. And Zach Collins, he's having a surgery, so he's going to his season officially comes to an end. But it's going to be an audition who's going to be on this team next year. And I don't know about you, LaKeena. This guy, as we talked about before, this guy is not blameless. But if you're Billy Donovan, do you really want to go through this next stage of a rebuild? I know he had to sign up on this, but and I know AK and Tourist kind of show his AK and Mark Eversley, and I know that had to do one hell of a selling job for him to convince Billy Donovan to stick around. But if you had Coach Billy Donovan, not saying he's blameless, but how much more can you take of this?
And I know he just lost his dad recently, and I know that Billy himself isn't getting any younger. And I think if you're you want to go someplace where you'll have a shot, perhaps maybe winning something. And unfortunately, the way this team is being constructed, and I'm sure the way it's going to be rebuilt, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So I don't know if you're Billy Donovan, you probably want to go to him and said, "Hey, you know what? I'm out. I'm not like I said. I'm enough of this. I'm done." Yeah. I don't think anybody will blame him if he does that. So I don't know what's going to happen here. And honestly, I think Bulls fans that are still watching, God bless you if you are. I think you've got these next 24, 25 games. I mean, you just want to wait till the season. You just want to get these next 2.5 months out of the way so that you can kind of just go into the offseason, hopefully not have to play a play-in. Like I said, they host Charlotte tomorrow at the UC. And they also host Portland.
We'll see a couple of plays.
Yeah, and also they also host Portland on Thursday. So yeah, I mean, we'll talk about what Portland did over the weekend, but it's definitely one of those days where you're just like, counting down that the game. Like I said, can we get those games over with now? But I don't know.
Yeah. All right, let's switch it over to the rest of the NBA. We'll start off with the Sunday night action featured on NBC. Lenny Kravitz striking up that theme music. Shout out Bob Costas for that special intro into the Lakers and Celtics game. As far as the actual game was concerned, the Celtics dominated the Lakers 111-89. Lakers Hall of Fame, basketball Hall of Fame legend James Worthy and current studio TV analyst for Spectrum Sportsnet has some critical things to say about LeBron and Luka last night. We'll get into that coming up. But shout out to the Lakers organization. We knew this for the last few months. The statue of Pat Riley was revealed outside of Crypto.com, formerly known as Staples Center last night. They had a ceremony to honor him at halftime. Many of his former players were at center court, including the great Magic Johnson, AC Green, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and of course James Worthy was there. I think Byron Scott, one-time Laker head coach in his later years, was there as well. Mr. Riley still looks good, holding up his fist
Yes.
at 81 years young. So
Uh-huh.
his wife and his son-in-law was there last night, and so and a couple of their grandkids were there last night. If you caught the halftime ceremony, LaKeena, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that they made clip they had to show clips of those Showtime Lakers from back in the day, and that was a really cool moment. Like you said, 81 years old. I mean, look, Coach Riley could still probably coach if he wants to, and still looks great. So yeah, it was great to see a lot of those guys there. I know Magic. I know Magic was there, but I know he did a video. A video, tribute deal to his former coach. So yeah, it was really sweet and a really cool a moment there. Unfortunately, though, today's this Lakers, the modern day Lakers didn't have a good performance yesterday. They lose to the Celtics 111-89. 32 points for Jaylen Brown, 30 off the bench for Peyton Pritchard, his highest score this season. Vooch had 9 and 8 boards. So I'm sure he's having a nice time over there in Boston. On the flip side, though, for the Lakers, 25 for Luka, 20 for LeBron, and 15 points for Austin Reeves. That was about it. So just not a good showing there. Our buddy Michael Conforto, of course, who covers, of course, we had him on for the Rams. He also covers the Lakers for California Post Sports, and he was. He had his videos and such, and it just wasn't he said himself, and he said when he was on with us, and we all agree that the defensive effort was not there. Marcus Smart, where the hell were you? No points for him. Only 4 points for DeAndre Ayton. I mean, I heard Worthy's comments, but they can't really do it all by themselves. I mean, LeBron's not getting any younger, and unfortunately, they didn't. You thought that maybe. You thought that maybe getting guys like Jared Vanderbilt and Jackson Hayes, he only scored 2 points, and Luke Kennard had 9, but that's not enough. When you don't have a good supporting cast around you, it's gonna cause problems. I know Lakers, I think they're still in the top in the 5 range, but they may not get out of the first round too. Their supporting guys don't help out Luka and LeBron.
Yes, we said going up to the approaching the trade deadline, they need somebody to anchor the defense from a big man's perspective. That they didn't do that, and you saw how they lost in the playoffs last year to Minnesota, where Jackson Hayes was a non-factor. We know the athletes they have over there with the Timberwolves, with their length and athleticism and size. The Lakers just do not have that. We have your two best players in Luka and LeBron. As your best players, and both of them cannot play like a defense. One because of age, and the other one because of I don't want to say lack of want to, but they just don't have it in his game. Regarding Luka Doncic, it's going to cause some problems. Like you said, they got Austin Reeves back. He said they picked up Luke Kennard via trade at the trade deadline, but that's just not enough. And if you're GM Ryan Pelinka, you really can't really do anything until the summer. Mark Walter is the new owner now of the Los Angeles Lakers, and they're starting to make changes and bring his own people in there. So, the Lakers has some big decisions to make over the summer. Will LeBron James come back? If so, it's definitely going to have to be at a reduced pay rate because he's not going to make $54 million like he is this year. And they already resigned Luka after what happened last year. So, the Lakers got some tough decisions to make, and so we'll see what happens. But hopefully, they can finish the season strong and they draw a favorable matchup in the first round. Because if they don't, they face Minnesota again. The same result is going to happen this year, like it did last year.
Maybe even worse though. So they may get swept by Minnesota should they play, or a team like Minnesota. So we'll see what happens there. The rest of your action from last night, Sunday, the Magic edged out the Clippers 111-109. Desmond Bay had 36. Donovan Clayton had 23, career high for him as Portland beat Phoenix, and Phoenix will be without Dylan Brooks after he broke his hand in their win against Orlando on Saturday. Yeah, so now and Booker's still out. So might be trouble ahead for Phoenix, but we'll see what happens there. Philadelphia with a nice win over Minnesota. Tyrese Maxey had 39 points. Charlotte beat Washington. LaMelo Ball had 37 points. Dallas with something to cheer about. Chris Middleton had 25 as they beat Indiana. And shout out to Golden State. I watched a little bit of this game last night. This was the second game of that ABC afternoon doubleheader. No Steph, no Draymond, no problem though. Moses Moody had 23. points on Al Horford. That was the old Al Horford from the Boston days. He had 22 points as well. DeAnthony Melton had 20. So I don't like I said, shout out to them for being able to beat Jokic and Murray and the rest of the Nuggets group. But I don't know if they can hang on. They gotta get Steph or Draymond. They gotta get one of those guys to come back, because if the Warriors, I don't think can be able to sustain this.
I'm with you. For the short term, they can, but in the long term, they cannot. You mentioned about Steph Curry; he's not getting any younger, and so is Draymond Green. He's not getting any younger either. So they need both of those guys to carry this group through. Are they a championship team? I'm talking about the Warriors. No, but they are a very competitive team. We saw that last year. They took advantage of a youthful Houston Rockets team, beating them in 7 games before injuries, and the Minnesota Timberwolves took them out of the second round of the playoffs last year. On the flip side for Denver, if you're a Nuggets fan, you should be worried a little bit. We talked about it on the show last week. Jokic came back right before the All-Star break, so did Jamal Murray, but Aaron Gordon's still out. You still Christian Brown and Bruce. I think Bruce Brown came back right before the All-Star break. I'll take Jokic out of it for a minute, but your supporting cast for Denver still has to stay healthy. And Cam Johnson was nicked up too a couple weeks ago. Your supporting cast has to stay healthy and have the chemistry and gel together and play with some consistency. If they can, I still believe they're going to be dangerous. But if any of the key role players go down outside of Jokic and Murray, and you could say a possible early exit for them too.
Yeah, that and look, they caught up, and they were to come back and had to leave for a little bit. But yeah, but those guys from the Warriors, I mean, like I'm sure you saw stuff. You really got it to get. I know he was itching to get out there. I know it killed that he couldn't go out there. So, but yeah, they got the win. So like I said, will they sustain it? That's going to be a whole different. That's a whole another story.
Yep. The rest of your results from yesterday: Toronto gets back on track. They destroyed the Milwaukee Bucks 122-94. So I'll say it. I said it once. I'll say it again. If you're Giannis, you don't come back this year. We all know his situation. The Milwaukee Bucks front office is trying to trade him this summer, and so we're counting down the days for that. The Atlanta Hawks, Jalen Johnson, first-time All-Star, gets it done again. The Hawks beat the Brooklyn Nets 115-104. And in that first game of the ABC doubleheader yesterday, the OKC Thunder, without SGA, they beat the Cavaliers 121-113.
Going to be just to see if they're still 44-14. They're still going to get the number 1 seed in the West, barring any big collapse. So I think they'll be just fine. However long SGA is out, I think you want to keep them out as long as you can, as long as they seem to be holding down the front fort. So they should be just fine there. Now going to Saturday's game, Houston and the Knicks. The Knicks came back because it was back and forth for a little bit. I mean, the Knicks had a lead for a little bit, then the Rockets took a big lead, but unfortunately, in the fourth quarter, 33-15. That's how much the Knicks scored against the Rockets in the fourth quarter. 25 points for Cat. He kind of spearheaded that. Also, OG Anunoby had 20. Jalen Brunson had 20 as well. On the flip side for Houston, 30 points for KD. 16 for Sagun, and 21 for Jabari Smith Jr. But unfortunately, they couldn't able to hold on to that lead. And that fourth quarter, they're gonna have numbers with that fourth quarter for a while.
Yeah, even though you have Kevin Durant on your team, if you're the Houston Rockets, with a young nucleus like that, you had to learn how to close out games against playoff teams, especially on the road when you have big leads like that. Because once a snowball mistakes happen, it's more about mental than physical, especially when you get to this late stage of the season. So hopefully the young players on the Rockets learn from this, and I think they'll be fine. But you have to close out to get to where you want to go. You got to learn through situations like this, and hopefully the Rockets don't have to learn this lesson too many times, especially against a playoff team like the Knicks on the road.
Jose Alvarado, who of course the Knicks picked up the injury, had a couple of big steals to sort of start that rally. So he deserves some credit for that win as well. Wemby had 28 as San Antonio took care of Sacramento. 26 points for Jalen Duren as the Pistons, of course, beat the Bulls. Of course, that was number 8 in the row for the Bulls that game on Saturday. Andrew Wiggins had 28 as Miami held off Memphis. The Pelicans, I should say, they beat Philadelphia. The sort of a mile upset. Jordan Poole had 23 there, and I talked about that game between the Suns and the Magic in double overtime. Of course, Dylan Brooks broke his hand. Now he's going to be gone for 6 to 8 weeks. And Grayson Allen had 27 as the Suns held off the Magic in double overtime.
Yep, and the results for Friday, we won't break down any of the games. We'll just give you the results. The Cavaliers beat the Hornets by 5. The Wizards beat the Pacers by 13. Memphis beat Utah. The Miami Heat destroyed the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta. Minnesota beats Dallas by 11. Milwaukee blows out the New Orleans Pelicans by 21. The Thunder took care of the Brooklyn Nets. The Nuggets beat the Trailblazers handily, and the Lakers beat the Clippers by 3. Kawhi Leonard exited that game early with the ankle injury, even though he did play last night. LaKeena, just quickly before we get to the schedule for this week's games in the NBA. I'm still looking at that Western Conference is still going to be very competitive. I'm still not ignoring the Minnesota Timberwolves, but as we talked about with the Houston Rockets, I still think they're going to be there. They just got to learn not to blow big leads, especially on the road against playoff contending teams. But here's the thing about the Phoenix Suns. You mentioned Dylan Brooks injured his hand over the weekend. Hopefully, this not the beginning of the end for Phoenix. It shouldn't be, because remember, Devin Booker got injured back early December, and I thought this was the beginning of the end. It turned out it wasn't. They still are holding the fray right now. But if you're Phoenix, I think Devin Booker will be back soon, but Dylan Brooks is the bigger loss, and he's the heart and soul of that team, especially defensively. You need veterans like that, especially on the teams like this. Phoenix has been one of the best surprising teams this year, but that's going to be a huge loss for Brooks. Who's going to fill his shoes? I don't know of anybody on that roster that can.
It's going to be interesting to see how this team does. I mean, they were able. He kind of stepped up when Book got hurt, and now that he's going to be gone for about 8 weeks. Now, it looks like Phoenix, we'll see what happens. They may go into a little bit of they may lose a couple of spots. They're right in that 7th spot in the play-in. A couple of games behind Minnesota as we're recording this. I don't know who on that team can step it up for now that they're both going to be gone. So that's going to be interesting to see. Like Golden State, I mean, they're right there. They've been able to sustain it for a little bit, but hopefully Steph and Draymond will be back soon. Portland, look, they've kind of been right there, so maybe they could go up a couple of, maybe a spot, maybe 2. Same thing with the Clippers. Again, Kawhi's got to stay healthy. I think it's gonna be between those. I think it will be among those 4, but it'll be just to see like what the order is, because I think it's really just going to depend on how these teams do these last 24, 25 games. So that's really going to be the key here among those 4. Like it's going to be really more positioning for the play-in, if anything.
Yeah, with all those teams, you guys stay healthy, and who's going to be the hottest team going into the playoffs, and that's the 2 main factors here in a competitive Western Conference. We always talk about the top half, but like you said, the bottom half, I think that's going to be the better race there. It's all about positioning at this point.
Now, real quick, talk about the tanking rules, because I looked at this and I'm just like, okay, how are you going to spearhead this? Explain to the folks real quick before we talk about the schedule for this week.
I'll just give my 2 cents on it real quick, because we're up against it. I know Adam Silver, the commissioner, is going to have a meeting with the board of governors and the owners this summer on the tanking rules. Of course, Utah and I forgot Utah and I forgot who the other team was that got fined a few weeks ago for sending their stars in the 4th quarter. I know it's not guaranteed, unlike the NFL, when you have the worst record, you automatically get the number 1 pick. The NBA is much different. I know that Commissioner Silver has tweaked the rules before the start of last year. If you have you have a few more wins than the worst team in the league, you still had the same amount of chance to percentage-wise to get the number 1 pick. Maybe you create a scenario or a tournament to see who gets the number 1 pick. I don't know, but realistically, I don't know what they can do at this point, LaKeena. I know us as fans pay a lot of money to go to go to these games, and you don't want to see an inferior product. But at the same time, if the tanking rules are still in effect, if you want your favorite team like the Bulls here in Chicago to quote unquote tank, I know many fans embrace that, but at the same time, these tickets are the amounts for these tickets to these games are a whole lot of money, and you really don't want to pay $200 to see your team tank. I know it doesn't guarantee you the number one pick, but it increases your odds. But at the same time, I'm not paying $200 unless you play an opponent like the Lakers or the Celtics to see your favorite team tank. That's just me.
I mean, it's going to be interesting. Like, how are you going to tell if some are intentionally taking? You're going to say, well, let's take a temperature, or you do want to check and see if somebody is really hurt. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how you're going to know if a team is tanking. I mean, that whole thing is the whole thing just seems a little bit silly to me. And I know that Commissioner Silva wants to kind of like the outcry from fans and such, but it's kind of lame. This sort of seems a little bit weird. Okay, so whoever doesn't tank, they get number one pick, or who does take a number one pick, the whole thing is just very confusing. And they're going to have to modify all this to see what happens. But it's just a little bit kind of crazy how all this is sort of panning out. But I don't know. Yeah. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, your schedule for tonight and for the rest of the weekend in the NBA, I should say, it looks like this. Tonight's games, the first game of the Peacock doubleheader will feature the Spurs and the Pistons. This could be this year's matchup in the NBA Finals. A rematch of the 2005 NBA Finals. Rashid, do not double Robert or the inbounds pass from Game 5. For those of you who don't know, look it up on YouTube. The rest of the games for tonight, Sacramento will visit Memphis. And the second game of the NBA on NBC on Peacock doubleheader will feature the Utah Jazz tank team against the Houston Rockets. That's at 8:30. That's your schedule for Monday.
We'll see how Houston feels after blowing that game, I guess, the Knicks on Saturday. Tuesday's games for tomorrow, you got Philadelphia, Indiana, Washington, and Atlanta. Dallas and Brooklyn, both are tank teams. OKC and Toronto, that should be an intriguing matchup. The first game, the Peacock doubleheader, I think these games are also going to be on NBC Sports Network, if I'm not mistaken. The Knicks and Cleveland, that should be a good one in the East. Charlotte and Chicago. Miami and Milwaukee. Golden State and the Pelicans. Boston and Phoenix. And the second game, I'll be watching this one. This should be an intriguing one here up in the Great Northwest. It's that Peacock NBA Sports Network doubleheader. Minnesota and Portland. And Orlando continues their West Coast trip against LeBron and Luka and the Lakers. We'll see what the Lakers move will they be in after getting pummeled in that game against the Celtics yesterday.
All right, your schedule for Wednesday looks like this. The first game of that Wednesday night doubleheader on ESPN will feature the Detroit Pistons hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder. Too bad the SGA, a.k.a. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, were not playing that one. Damn. That definitely would have been a game, but it should be competitive no less. The rest of the games for Wednesday are as follows. San Antonio will visit Toronto. Golden State will visit Memphis. Sacramento will visit Houston. The Cleveland Cavaliers will travel to Milwaukee to take on the Bucks. And the second game of that in Wednesday night doubleheader will feature the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets.
Thursday, you got Charlotte and Indiana, Miami and Philly. Should be a good one there. Washington, Atlanta, San Antonio, and Brooklyn. The first game of the prime doubleheader for Thursday, you got Houston, Orlando. Maybe an intriguing one there. Portland comes to the UC. They continue their East Coast trip as they face the Bulls.
Take it on.
We'll see. There'll be 11 in a row. We'll see what happens there. Sacramento and Dallas, the Lakers and Phoenix, New Orleans and Utah. And the second game, the prime video doubleheader, should be an intriguing one. You got the T-Wolves and the Clippers. And that's your schedule for this week in the NBA.
Hold on tight, folks. Hour number 2 is coming up right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you. Yours truly has a list I saw on social media over the weekend. One of the prominent NFL writers has his list for the top tier free agents in the National Football League. Baseball spring training is underway. College basketball, the Final Illini left California empty-handed. And we'll have Old School TV Monday saluting Black History Month. That and a whole lot more as you listen to the Monday Extravaganza edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Chi. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on a Monday starting against this year. Locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss LaKeena McGee, which is she, Sidney Brown here. You know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and yours again, IG.
We're going to kick off hour number 2 discussing the National Football League's top free agents, and we'll get into some Cubs and Sox in spring training baseball. For this half hour, if you have any questions or comments regarding those subjects, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
It's franchise tag time, and of course, the Atlanta Falcons, according to Ian Rappaport, they're going to put the franchise tag on Kyle Pitts. So not a big surprise there. He was actually used a little bit more this year. It looks like Michael Penix Jr. might be back after coming back from surgery from a torn ACL.
Mm-hmm.
They've already there's already rumor that they are going to release Kirk Cousins before the new league year starts in a couple of weeks. Not really a big surprise. Javonte Williams from and Dallas, they've agreed on a new extension. He was in last year of his rookie deal. He gets a 3-year deal. Get a little bit extra paper, so he definitely earned that. $16 million in guaranteed money. So that if you're the Cowboys, you'll definitely take that. You'll take that part of that and the money as well. So not a big surprise with the combine. You're getting ready to commence. Down there in Indy later this week. I'm a little, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what the Bears will be looking for. Do they find an edge rusher out there down there in the combine? It's going to be interesting to see what the Bears do here, especially with all the, all the other free agent moves and such. There are already rumors that maybe they may not be able to keep Kyle Manunga, of course, made the Pro Bowl, had a nice breakout year. He's going to be asking for a lot of money, maybe, I guess, 10 to 12 million for what I can see. they're not going to be able to pay him that, so he might take his services. So he'll probably like to take his service elsewhere. So yeah, I think that not a really a big no big shock with you guys we've been talking about for like the last couple of weeks, Sid.
Yeah, I know the Bears are still technically over the salary cap, but not by that much. I know that Amin Amaganje, if I pronounced his name correctly, that linebacker that Ryan Post signed a couple years ago. He got cut last week. I know maybe Cole Kmet, the starting tight end for the Chicago Bears, may be a cap casualty as well. We talked about it after the season concluded a couple months ago, but Ryan Post has some tough decisions to make. One or two more players are going to have to go before the start of free agency, and it's going to be a interesting direction where this Bears team is headed. Do they need to rebuild? Absolutely not. They need to rebuild their defensive line, as you mentioned. Maybe Ryan Poles will find some gems this week. Watching the draft prospects down there in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium. I think realistically, that's where the Bears will find their next pass rusher. They better, because reading and listening to some of these pundits over the last few weeks, about rumors that Max Crosby may come to Chicago via trade. I know Caleb Williams was on his podcast. We didn't discuss it much on air here, but you can tell that Max Crosby, in interviewing Caleb, he really wants to go to a team that has a chance to win. Why not Max Crosby is getting up there in age, and he's in the prime of his career right now. And I believe he only played in one playoff game. That was back in 2021 against the eventual AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. Outside of that, he hasn't experienced much winning, so you know that he wants to win. But I think realistically, LaKeena, I think Ryan Poles will find his next star or two as far as that defensive line in the draft, and it's going to come at a much cheaper price than Trey Henderson or a trade for Max Crosby.
Yeah, I think that's really going to be the key. I know that people are going to playing around with their trade machines. It's hilarious. I saw one guy from the Raiders. I think I tweeted it out over the weekend that I guess Crosby and I think a first rounder, and the Raiders get Luther Burden the third, and like 3 first rounders in the next 4 years. So I know the Rams made it a point where they say Les Snead said the GM said that will F them picks. I think I think he's real. I think Blatty's realizing that you do need some of those picks. So unfortunately, find out the hard way there. So I don't know if Poles will. I don't even think the Raiders would do that kind of trade, but I don't know. But it's sort of silly that people are play with their trade machines and trying to see what they do. Like I said, I don't think Max Crosby's going anywhere. I just don't see it. Look, we've seen teams. Look, we had 2, 4, and 13 teams make the Super Bowl. I mean, look, no one had the Patriots and Seahawks going to the Super Bowl this year after what happened within the previous year. So I think for people want to, we've seen teams turn around quick. So I don't know if you're the Raiders, I don't think you want to, unless it's one of those days where he's done. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. But it's definitely one of those things where you just wonder, okay, what's the Warriors' mindset's going to be at this point? Because we've heard, I know Crosby's been very, pay close to vest to his comments, but you'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, the $1 million question is for Ryan Poles and for the Bears. Looking at the situation realistically, you won the NFC North this past year. You won a playoff game, beating Green Bay twice, once in the regular season, and of course in a historic comeback in the wild card round. Are you a Max Crosby away from taking the next step to becoming championship contenders, or do you need a guy like Max Crosby and somebody else? And given the salary cap situation for the Chicago Bears, I don't know if you can fit 2 of those types of players under your salary cap, even after you cut down a couple more players before free agency starts. So the $1 million question is, are you a Max Crosby type player away from taking the next step?
I think that's the thing here. And plus, like you said, I mean, Benunga, he'll probably be gone. Kevin Byard, I know he wants to say, but he might be gone too. So I think the realities of all this is that, yeah, it'd be nice if you can keep a lot of those guys, but you got your money tied up to a lot of those guys in the front 7 and the secondary. So it'll be interesting to see, Jalen Johnson, he might be gone. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what Ryan Poles does and what's going to be the number one priority here. Yes, you also got Ozzy Trapillo going to be out for most, if not all, of next season. You got to get yourself an O-line guy as well on the right side. So that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff that that the polls is going to have to figure out, and we'll see how if he finds it via trade or the draft. We'll have to wait and see.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena here with you, discussing the Bears in the NFL and free agency that's going to start in a couple of weeks. But the combine will take place starting today in Indianapolis for the potential draft prospects for this upcoming NFL 2026 NFL draft, which will take place in April. And going to the Athletics, Daniel Popper, he released his article over the weekend as far as the top free agents in the NFL for this offseason. We talked about Trey Hendrickson, the edge rusher out of Cincinnati. I think LaKeena, he's I'm not going to say a perfect fit for the Bears, but if it wasn't for his age and the injury history over the last 2 or 3 years, that concerns me. But Daniel Popper from the Athletic has him ranked number 1 free agent. Breece Hall, number 2, the running back for the New York Jets. Another edge rusher, Jalen Phillips from the Philadelphia Eagles. Linebacker Devin Lloyd from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, quarterback Daniel Jones, we don't have to worry about him as far as the Bears are concerned. Number 6, center Tyler Linderbaum from Baltimore. Number 7, wide receiver Mike Evans from the Buccaneers. I think he's going to stay. Number 8, Kenneth Walker III from the world champion Seattle Seahawks. I'm assuming he's going to stay too. Number 9, Malik Willis, quarterback from the Green Bay Packers, who had an impressive end to the regular season for Green Bay. And number 10, running back Travis Etienne from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes, I heard the Etienne. I know that there are a lot of Chiefs fans that think that maybe he might be going over there, to shore up that running back spot there. I don't know about that. I'm sure they're going to do everything they can. I'm talking about Jacksonville to keep him there. The last couple of guys, I know Willis. I know he said he likes in Green Bay. He likes the the sub in Green Bay and the personnel there. So I don't think he's going to go anywhere. Mike Evans isn't going anywhere, and I was going to walk the third. I mean, he just got an MVP. I know he likes there in Seattle. I know they won to stay. I know the Seahawks now up for sale. So I think they're going to give him a decent amount of money. There's really no other than those 4. There's no one on that list that makes like, this would be a good fit for the Bears. I just don't see it.
Okay, we'll continue. We'll give you some other names on this list going to into the teens. Offensive tackle Rasheed Walker from the Green Bay Packers. Kyle Pitts, the tight end for the Atlanta Falcons. Defensive back Lante Taylor from New Orleans. Khalil Mack, the edge rusher from the Los Angeles Chargers, or as we call them on the show, the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles. And there was another name I wanted to discuss with you on this list. Okay, Kevin Byard at number 21. Tackle Brayton Smith from the Indianapolis Colts.
I mean, where would you put him though if you bring him on? So I don't know if that'll be a good fit there. I know there have been some Bears fans that want Khalil Mack to come back, but at his age and his injury history, do you really want to take a chance and probably waste some money? I don't think so. But yeah, like I said, none of those guys really kind of like, piques my interest.
Okay, here's the name that I wanted to get to. Odafe Owe, the edge rusher from the Los Angeles Chargers. I know he's much younger than Khalil Mack. Would Ryan Poles take a flyer on him?
Maybe, but like I said, I think he's going to stay over there and with the Chargers. I think he's been one of the few bright spots on that defense that, like they lost a lot of guys due to injury last year. He was one of those guys that kind of kept everything afloat for the most part for the Chargers. So I don't see them letting him go, but we'll see. I mean, look, do you take a flight on him? Sure, but I think he's going to stay with the Chargers in Los Angeles.
All right, finish out the top NFL free agency rankings according to the Athletics' Daniel Popper. We'll do the last 4 names. Wan'Dale Robinson, the wide receiver for the New York Giants. Juwan Jennings, wide receiver from the San Francisco 49ers. Center Connor McGovern from the Buffalo Bills. And safety Cam Curl from the Los Angeles Rams. We talked about that Rams secondary, LaKeena, being hit and miss last year. You saw what they did at the end of the game against the Bears in the divisional round last year. You saw they got torched in the NFC title game against the Seattle Seahawks. Do you think Ryan Poles will look in the direction of a Cam Curl?
I think he was a decent one, but like I said, that secondary wasn't really much to write home about in the Rams. I think that the secondary kind of killed them in the end. So I don't know if he would take a flyer on him. Juwan Jennings, like I said, I think he's going to stay. I know both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and I think even Jennings himself has said he wants to stay out there in San Francisco. They may have to do a lot of maneuvering. I know they're still a little bit above the cap. They may have to give like a sort of an incentive-laden deal for him, like if he hits certain marks. So I don't think he's not going anywhere. Wan'Dale Robinson is interesting, but like I said, the Bears really don't unless the Bears trade DJ Moore or Doomsday. I don't think they're gonna take a flyer on him, but he would be a good fit for some other teams that need another wide receiver.
All right. Before we switch over to baseball, LaKeena, we'd like to say rest in peace to the unfortunate late great wide receiver Rondale Moore from the Minnesota Vikings. Of course, he got drafted by Cardinals a couple of years ago. He moved on to Minnesota before the start of this past season. He died over the weekend, just way too soon. I know one of our commenters posted up his condolences earlier. Thank you, Relentless Mike. We hear about these unfortunate, tragic stories about football players dying too soon. Yes, football's a dangerous game, but I don't know about you, but we see some of these athletes retire and pass away just way too soon. And we saw that from the Cowboys player last year, and now we're seeing it here.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. I remember first seeing him at Purdue. He was a standout there. I think he was all Big Ten, second team all Big Ten for a couple of last couple of years there. And you're seeing some of his former teammates. I know JJ Watt when he was over there for those couple of years he was there out there in Arizona. I know he was kind of his mentor. I know he was very upset. Hollywood Brown, of course, he's now with Kansas City, but when he was out there in Arizona, I know that a lot of those guys that played with him in Arizona, they were in shock. I know Minnesota, they've had a tough go at it the last couple of years. There's a couple of their guys, and just one of those things where you're just like, I know that they reached out to him, but sometimes it takes the other person has to reach out to take the reaching, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So if you want to reach out to someone, but if they don't, reciprocate and they accept it, I don't know if that was the case here with Rondale Moore, but look, don't be afraid to ask for help. So that's kind of like my whole thing with that. Yeah. So rest in peace to Mr. Moore, and lots of prayers to him and to his family. I know this is they're going through a very tough time right now.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said just there. So, yeah, if you want to reach out to your friends and let them know that you're there for them, and you just got to be there to support them through thick and thin. You're listening to Second City Sports Zone Chicago City. LaKeena here with you as we transition over to baseball and spring training action. LaKeena, your Chicago Cubs are 0-3, even though not everybody is playing via the veterans. But the White Sox, yes, my White Sox are 3-0. No, I'm not telling you people to pony up money for playoff tickets. No, it's spring training. A few of their guys from the White Sox will be leaving later this week to participate in that dump in the World Baseball Classic. The Cubs, as I mentioned, they're 0-3. The White Sox defeated the Cubs last Friday in their first spring training game. They defeated the Oakland Athletics, which we still call them on the show, last Saturday, and then yesterday they defeated the Milwaukee Brewers by the 5-2. LaKeena, Murakami, even though Mune Murakami, the first baseman for the Chicago White Sox, the big Japanese slugger, I know he went 0-2 yesterday, but he looked good in his first game on Friday against the Cubs, collected his first hit as a White Sox player with that double. Jordan Hicks looked good last Saturday. I had a chance to watch some of that spring training game this past Saturday against the Oakland. Actually, Saturday starting to take place, but some of the big guys like Curtis Mee, who's going to represent, I believe, Australia in the World Baseball Classic coming up here shortly. Kyle Teal and Edgar Carroll. Kyle Teal for Team Italy. But some of the young guys will get some consistency going. Call me crazy, LaKeena, but I think surprisingly this White Sox team offensively is going to be fun to watch.
The pitch is really going to be the thing here for the White Sox, and I think, look for people who, like, I know we saw some people say, well, they're 3-0, but did they make the playoffs and such? Look, so is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's 3-0 as well. I know that they had I know Skeens had a nice outing on Friday in their Grapefruit League matchup. I'm not, like I said, I'm not. I think spring training to me is always one of those things where. And let's also remember, you got the World Baseball Classic, so a lot of those guys on all these teams aren't there. So I would say, look, if you get improvement, fine. If you if you look good, okay. But again, spring training is one of those things where I know the Cubs got into a middle of a triple play to match Shaw, but like you said, a lot of those guys are not there right now, and a lot of those guys are going to be leaving to respect their respective countries. So for me, it's just like, okay, look, you just don't get hurt. I think that's really the key for me. Don't get hurt either the spring training play or in the World Baseball Classic. If you do well, then okay, fine. I'm not gonna take stock on. Look, it's nice to see that the White Sox doing what they're doing, but I'm not gonna print out playoff tickets just yet. So, I think it's definitely one of those things where I'm just like, okay, all right, but let's keep it going. I know that the Yankees didn't have a good spring training last year. They were at 500. They made the playoffs, so I'm not gonna take all this. For me, spring training is just practice till you get to when the real show starts. That's basically always been my synopsis of spring training.
Yeah.
I don't watch a single spring training game, so I'm just like, okay, just don't get hurt. Just keep improving, and then you'll get yourself ready for the grind of this 162 game season.
If you're a veteran team like the Yankees, like the Brewers, and to now the certain extent like your Chicago Cubs, that's the approach you're going to take for those young guys that are getting these opportunities, these at bats, or if you're a pitcher getting some of these opportunities to pitch extra innings, you take advantage of because you never know, especially with the injury bug occurring around Major League Baseball. You may and will get your chance. So are you going to be ready to step up to the plate when your name is called? But for young teams like Pittsburgh and the White Sox, especially, you want to establish an identity, you establish a chemistry. What's your mission statement on how you're about to go about this season? In the case of the White Sox, how are you going to take that next step? Each game is important. Like you say, you're not playing it as life and death, but you want to establish habits, establish a culture, establish an identity to get ready for the regular season. So if you're a veteran team, like you said, just don't get hurt. Whoever plays, take advantage of it because your name will be called at some point this season, heaven forbid, due to any major injuries. And for the young teams like the White Sox, you're still trying to establish an identity to establish habits and to get ready for the regular season.
Now, I just say that earlier this morning, Michael Conforto, the Cubs signed him to a minor league deal. I mean, I know he didn't really have a good showing with the Dodgers last season. I know he didn't have a good showing when he played with the White Sox. A couple coffee up with the White Sox a few years ago. I mean, this could be one of those things where, like, he turned 33 on Sunday. Happy belated birthday to him. But it's definitely one of those things where you're just like, I don't know. I mean, it could be something. It could not. I mean, you're not paying a lot of money, so it'll be just to see what he does, if he can treat, if he makes a big league roster. But yeah, I mean, I'm not I think if you're a Cubs fan, you shouldn't. It's a nice to take a flyer on somebody, veteran. So look, if he's good, okay. Look, he might be a utility guy that you can use, on the outside. But if he stinks, then well, hey, you took a flyer on him and you didn't lose any money.
Yeah, that's what I said. This is a very great low risk move for Jet Hoyer and Carter Hawkins. As we talked about leading up to spring training, who's going to be that starting right fielder is the Matt Shaw. I don't think it's going to be Seiya Suzuki because of his age and his lack of consistency with the guys we saw over the last 2 or 3 years. Michael Conforto, like you said, he did not have a great year with the Dodgers last year. He did get his ring, but if he makes the team, he's definitely going to be a rotation guy. You're not going to start him every game out there in right field or wherever. So he's just like what Justin Turner was last year for the Cubs. That veteran guy in that clubhouse that knows his role. He's not going to step on anybody's toes. He's definitely not going to take presses that this Cubs team needs. So I think he'll be just fine. But like you say, he's not getting any younger, and he's not going to take anybody's job. So I think this is more about depth in the outfield, assuming that Matt Shaw will be your starter in the platoon role at right field.
Like, so he could be like an extra guy that could be kind of like, if you want to play infield, he can do that. He plays second base. If he wants, looks, I know outfield is more his thing, but if he wanted the outfield, fine. In case a guy gets hurt or whatever, he could be a nice, like I said, a nice little utility guy that goes outside. So this could be like I said, this is a low risk, potentially good reward move for Jed Hoyer. So we'll see what happens there. Now, Tariq Skubal has said, of course, a two-time reigning Cy Young winner for the Tigers. He said he'll only make one start for Team USA at the WBC before he returns to the Tigers. So I think with all this stuff going on with him and that high arbitration hearing, but the Tigers, I think I guess it's one of those days where you're just like, okay, especially if the Tigers, don't meet expectations and they have a bad start. Mm-hmm. Could he be on the mood? So I guess it's one of those things where he might be saving his energy in case he does get traded before the trade deadline. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens here with this.
Yeah, like I said, we all know that Detroit doesn't value him at $32 million a year. That's what he got in after his arbitration hearing. He was previously making $19 million a year. So as I said before, the Tigers had that strong start last year, leading that division up until September, where the Cleveland Guardians took over. So if the Tigers get off to a bad start, I think Tariq Skubal could be out of there by the August 2nd trade deadline this year. But if the Tigers somehow be competitive and stay in it, they could lose him for nothing this coming off season, pending the potential lockout. But the Tigers put themselves in a tough position. I know they picked up Framber Valdez from another great left-hander from the Houston Astros. I know he's been injury-prone the last couple of years, but when he's healthy, he's one of the best underrated left-handers in all of baseball. So the Tigers, in a sense, did protect themselves just in case they lose Skubal, whether it's at the trade deadline or at either the season where he just walks. But Detroit is in a tough position here because, as we said, we'll make our picks around this time next month after the spring training games conclude. But the Tigers are still in a tough position here. I know outside of the White Sox, technically, although the teams in the AL Central really didn't make any big moves. So the Tigers are, by happenstance, are the favorites, but you still get the sense, you still get the sense that the Guardians may make some noise somewhere in there. So, the Detroit's in a tough position here.
I think Cleveland might be kind of like that hot pick because I don't think a lot of folks feel that I think a lot of people don't feel that Detroit can kind of equal happen because of what's happening with Skubal right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing, the first couple months are going to be very telling in that AL Central. If Detroit goes in the hot start like they did last year, great. Skubal's going to be there throughout the season. If they stink and Cleveland or even Kansas City, I know Kansas is another hot pick. They may have a bounce back season. Who knows? But that's going to be the key here. I feel like whether Skubal stays with the Tigers or not, throughout the season.
Yeah. And so, as we said before, there's a lot of competition out there for that AL Central. Detroit, by happenstance, will be the favorite, even though they technically lost the division last year to the Cleveland Guardians. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. LaKeena here with you. We got to take our 2-2 timeout. When we return, we'll discuss college basketball. LaKeena, I got a couple of games to discuss with you outside of Illinois and UCLA. That Arizona-Houston game, I'm not going to say I wasted 2 hours of that, but I was disappointed in a couple of things that I saw, and we'll get into Michigan and Duke from the nation's capital as well. We'll have some sports media news, and we'll have our last entry for Old School TV Monday, saluting Black History Month. That and a whole lot more as you're listening to the Monday Extravaganza right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Chi. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Oops. Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports. So this Monday extravaganza edition, you're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and here's again IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. Any other topics that we have discussed thus far on today's show? We definitely get into that college basketball, some sports media news, and our salute to Black History Month for Old School TV Monday coming up on this half hour in our last break of the show for today. So if you have any questions or comments regarding those topics and more, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Couple of weeks before we'll be having brackets about 3 weeks from now, and for some of the smaller conferences, it's the last week of the season of the regular season before they go into their conference tournaments. I know for the bigger schools, still about a couple of weeks away before they start their conference tournaments. Now, Illinois lost a tough one. They were up 23 early in the first half, but UCLA came back and forced overtime. They won it thanks to Donovan Dead's Tyler's Edney Light going the distance, a shot kind of very similar to if you saw the from 1995 in the second round. Of course, that was the year. That was actually the last year UCLA won the national championship. They won the national championship that year. But Dent, 14 points, including that big bucket at the buzzer to give them their 10th conference win the season, their 18th overall. But Eric Daly Jr. led the way for UCLA with 20 points. Xavier Booker, who started that rally for UCLA early on that first half, he had 16 points off the bench. On the flip side for Illinois, 19 points for Keaton Waddle. I know he got banged up with that shoulder injury. We'll see. That's something to keep an eye on there. Tasiav Isevich had 16 points as well. Ben Hermichis had 15 off the bench. Illinois, look, this is one of those losses where it could come back to bite when it comes to seeding, but again, look, this time of year, you got to be careful, especially if you're a top team, playing one of these games, because you got teams like UCLA where they're kind of on the bubble. They're not on the bubble right now, but this helps them more than anything. But yeah, bad loss for Illinois on Saturday night.
Yeah, I watched that whole game. Shout out to Tim Brando and Jimmy Jackson. Both did a great job on the call for Fox. As you mentioned, also Taylor two halves for the final line night. They were playing textbook basketball in the first half, pick and roll, slam dunking, shooting hot from the three-point range, and then all that kind of fell apart. It did fall apart in that second half. LaKeena, I was starting to get worried when UCLA cut the lead to 7 at 50-43 at halftime. I said, Illinois, to reassert their dominance, they come out with a strong second half. Illinois didn't. UCLA did. UCLA outscored the Illini by 7 points in the second half, but Illinois, they were unwavered down the stretch. You mentioned about Eric Bailey Jr. The Illini actually forced him out of the game with foul trouble. They got him out of the game. Said, yeah, Illinois is going to take over in overtime. They're going to win the game, but nope. As you mentioned, UCLA, especially what they've been going through on the court the last couple of games. Mick Cronin, give credit to him and his coaching staff. His players came through at the end. And with that last possession, LaKeena, I don't know what that hell that defensive call was for the Illini and LaKeena. Brad Underwood, what was that? If you just go let Donovan Dent just walk down the lane like that, you might as well just let your players stand at the scores table, because all that was a race to the other end of the court with less than 4 seconds to go. What kind of defensive call was that? I don't know what that was, but that should have never happened. I know you don't want to foul and give the referees a chance to decide the game in air quotes at the last second, but what kind of defensive call was that?
And it'll be just
I blame Brad Underwood for that.
Yeah, it'll be just to see what happens, especially since later this week we're going to be playing a team that's not going to be in a good mood themselves after losing a tough one there. Michigan lost a tough one to Duke, 68-63. Cam Boozer, 18 points. He actually, speaking of foul trouble, he actually got into foul trouble about 7 minutes. Well, there's under 7 minutes left in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
He Coach Shire sat him for a little bit. He came back, scored 7 points, 7 straight points as he came off the bench to help the Blue Devils held off the Wolverines. 16 points for him, 14 points for Isaiah Evans. On the flip side, for Michigan, Yaxel Lindenborg had 21 points, but they struggled from the 3-point line, 6 for 25. And if you're a Duke, you take this kind of win, especially this late in the season as you get ready for March Madness and perhaps maybe that race for that number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, for Michigan, this was a tough loss, but like you said, they were in control most of the way, had a chance to watch at least the majority of that game before the Illini UCLA game. Michigan, they hung in there tough. Actually, I thought at times they took control of that game, but as you mentioned, LaKeena, when tough times rise up, you'll see who rises up the most. And like you said, with Cam Boozer struggling most of that game with foul trouble, he came through at the end there. And for Duke, they out-rebounded Michigan 28 to 41 to 28, I should say, at a plus 13 advantage. And you saw many of those key rebounds and defensive stops that the Blue Devils got in the last few minutes there. And in the turnovers, Michigan took care of the basketball for the most part with 7 turnovers. Duke got away with 11 turnovers, but it was Cam Boozer's hot shooting down the stretch, and with the Blue Devils making some key defensive shots to have them walk away with that 5-point victory.
Now Duke's back to the number 1 with this win. So you got to think maybe Shire's guys, maybe they're starting to kind of get ready as they gear up for this last couple of weeks of the regular season. Arizona beat Houston 73-66, and it was one of those games where like the last 5 minutes felt like it took almost 20 minutes because they were into the game reviews and then this and that, and it's just like, okay, yeah, this is why college hoops a pain in the butt to watch sometimes, especially those last few minutes, because inbounds and fouls, it was just like a total pain. But if you're Tommy Lloyd, you'll take the win.
It's getting like an NBA game from 5 years ago.
Yeah, but out there in Houston, Anthony D'Orso had 22 off the bench, which was a season high for him. Jaden Bradley had 17 and 16 points for Korchinnikov, and that led the way there for Arizona as they got a big win out there in Houston. Casey Fleming, so the freshman, had 17 points. Emmanuel Sharp had 14. But Houston had their struggles too down the stretch, even with all the weird end of game delays and whatnot.
The couple of things that ticked me off, LaKeena, like you said, it was a very entertaining game to watch, especially at the end, despite all the delays and all that. Houston, they were lucky to stay in that game, even though they shot horribly overall from 3-point range. I know they shot it at a 31% clip overall, but they were lucky to be in that game. You know why? Because Arizona could not hit their free throws. Check this out. 20 of 31 for Arizona at the free throw line for 65%. That game, if you want to be 100 about it, as the kids would say, Arizona should have blown Houston out of the water. Houston couldn't shoot the 3-point ball well. Most of their stars, including Kingston Flemings, they were in foul trouble. And number 3, they couldn't hit their free throws. I know Jaden Bradley, my guy, hit some key buckets down the stretch there, as you mentioned. But if Arizona would have made the majority of their free throws, that game would have been a blowout. So, if you're Arizona's head coach, you got away with the run, to be honest, which I would not feel good about this win at all.
Nah, I think if you're Tommy Floyd, I think he'll take the win. It's not it's not easy winning out there in Houston. So yeah, you'll take the win, even how you can get it. So I get you get out there with the win. I think that's all you can ask for there if you're Arizona. UConn, no trouble with Villanova. Continuing with Saturday's scores. BYU beat Iowa State. I mean, AJ Bonsa had 29 points. He was 10 for 17 from the field. But look, no Richie Saunders. You got to wonder like how long they can keep that. He'll be able to keep that up. He might wear himself out. Good, I said Richie Saunders out for the year.
Mm-hmm.
BYU might be exiting the tournament early. I'm not saying that that'll be the case, but don't be surprised if that happens if he has a bad shooting night.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they got what they needed to beat Iowa State. Cincinnati upset Kansas. I mean, the Derek Peterson saga continues, but a nice win for the Bearcats. Nebraska got back on track. No trouble with Penn State. Gonzaga held off Pacific. Florida, they're doing okay against Ole Miss. They beat Ole Miss pretty easily. Texas Tech, no trouble with K-State. Virginia beats Miami. Doesn't help with their bubble home. Talking about Miami. North Carolina with a nice win, of course, without Caleb Wilson as they beat Syracuse. St. John's handled Creighton. Tennessee with a nice win down there in Nashville as they beat Vandy. Arkansas beats Mizzou. Louisville beats Georgia Tech. Alabama held off LSU. So, and Florida State beating Clemson. That might help their. That might just that might put a dent on their tournament hopes. I'm talking about Clemson, but not a good loss there for the Tigers. But so yeah. So, Sunday's games, I know there's a couple of scores real quick. Michigan State held off Ohio State. Wisconsin beat Iowa. Let's see here. And there's anything else of note. So like I said, I think, we're getting to this time of year where a lot of the smaller conferences are finishing up their regular seasons. Like your Ohio Valley conferences and also your Missouri Valley conferences, those teams are starting to finish up their season starting this week. Now, going to this week's game, speaking of, you got Louisville and North Carolina at 6 o'clock as part of ESPN's Big Monday. And also to cap off that doubleheader for Big Monday, we'll see which team's going to be in a worse mood. You got Houston and Kansas out there at Fog Island. That's going to be 8 o'clock on ESPN. So that should be an interesting. That game got even more interesting.
Yeah, like you said, both teams are coming off of bad losses. Kansas, like I said, with Darren Peterson, if he plays tonight, which I assume he will his pride as far as himself in the team rise to the occasion, because both those things are on the line for him right now in Kansas. And then for Houston, as I said, they struggled shooting from three last Saturday against Arizona at home. That's only their second loss at home since joining the Big 12 Conference a couple years ago, and most of their starters were in foul trouble. So, like you said, we're going to see what it gives tonight. But quickly going back over to the Big Ten over the weekend, I think Ohio State, like you mentioned, losing to Michigan State yesterday. I think that's it for them as far as getting to the NCAA tournament. They're going to have to win the Big Ten tournament, which I do not see happening. And it's just wrapping up for Illinois. And you mentioned their next game will be Friday against Michigan. We'll get into that game on our next episode coming up this Friday here on Second City Sports. But Illinois has plenty of time between now and Friday to get this bad loss out of this system.
Well, Michigan, they got a game. They host Minnesota, so you gotta hope that if you're Dusty May, his guys doesn't get caught looking ahead. That's gonna be at 7:30 on Big Ten Network tomorrow. Duke and Notre Dame on ESPN. That's at 6 o'clock. Miami, remember they're the only of Ohio, I should say, the only undefeated team left. They face Eastern Michigan at 5:30 on ESPN Plus. North Carolina State against Virginia. That's going to be on the ACC Network at 6 tomorrow. Cincinnati meets Texas Tech. We'll see if they can ride the way of that Kansas upset as they go to Lubbock and face the Red Raiders. St. Louis, that game against the last game they had on Friday was somewhat interesting. let's just say there was a lot of stuff that went on afterwards against VCU, but we won't. That's neither
Yeah,
here
that
nor
was
there.
ugly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's neither here nor there. But even still, we'll see how they do against Dayton at 6 o'clock on ESPN Plus. West Virginia and OK State on CBS Sports Network. Northwestern and Indiana. It's going to be on FS1 at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Let's see here. Xavier and Providence on TNT and stream on True TV. Tennessee back in the top 25 as they meet Mizzou on SEC Network at 8 o'clock. Iowa State, we'll see. They say Utah. We'll see if they can bounce back against Utah on FS1. Arizona back at number 2. They face Baylor on ESPN2. BYU, they host UCF on ESPN 2 at 10. Arizona State, TCU on CBS Sports Network, and New Mexico and Nevada. That might be a bubble game, if you will. It's going to be on CBS Sports Network. Also, same time tomorrow, the Battle of Los Angeles. You got USC, UCLA at 10 o'clock on FS1.
I think that's a bigger game for USC because according to some bracketologists, USC would be one of the first 4 out as far as NCAA tournament considerations are concerned. Excuse me. Here's your key games for Wednesday. This one should be a good one. It's going to be on NBCSN and Peacock. Number 6, UConn will host number 15, St. John's. LaKeena, a couple weeks ago, we talked about on the show, St. John's upset UConn on February the 6th. Because St. John's has the edge as far as their last matchup. What do you see in this matchup? UConn is at home. Do you think they have the edge there, or does Rick Pitino have something up his sleeve once again for the Red Storm?
I'm sure Danny Hurley is going to want his revenge against Rick Pitino after what happened at MSG a few weeks ago. It's going to be interesting to see if both these teams. I think both these teams can have a shot, perhaps getting a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. So this should be an interesting game out there in Hartford. This could get down to wire as the first meeting did. So I'm sure if UConn, you want to get on the other end of that. So we'll see what happens there over there and Hartford coming up on Wednesday. Florida and Texas at 6 o'clock on ESPN2 out there in Austin. I think Texas really needs this if they want a shot at perhaps getting into the bubble to the tournament. Nebraska, they host Maryland on BTN. Vandy, we'll see how they bounce back from their loss to Tennessee as they face Georgia. That's about it there. Gonzaga hosts Portland. We'll see if they can get their revenge after losing to Portland a few weeks ago. I'm sure Mark Few is going to want revenge there. Alabama hosts Mississippi State. That's going to be at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. Texas A&M, I think if they want a shot, perhaps maybe getting back on the bubble, they got to beat Arkansas at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. UNLV and Grand Canyon on CBS Sports Network. DePaul and Creighton on Peacock and also on NBC Sports Network at 8. Wednesday, Santa Clara against St. Mary's at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. Oregon hosts Wisconsin on BTN, and Utah State meets San Diego State on FS1 at 10 o'clock on Wednesday.
And the notable game for Thursday from the top 25, number 8 Purdue will host number 13 Michigan State. The Spartans will travel to West Lafayette, and that's at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time on Peacock. LaKeena, both these teams have 22-5 records. Who needs this game more? In my opinion, I think Purdue needs this game more. I think Michigan State's okay in terms of seeding. Unless Michigan State gets blown out, I don't think if they lose it, it'll hurt them that much. But I think Purdue, this game is bigger for them because of a confidence standpoint. Hey, Braden Smith, their point guard, he's got to play well for Purdue to pull out the upset win over Michigan State.
Yeah, they got to get up to number 2, higher up in the number 2 seeding line. And Michigan State, I think you want to go improve your seeding as well. So, yeah, I think this is a big one I think it's a big game for both teams, I feel like, in my opinion. But, yeah, it should be a good one on Peacock. And also, I believe it's also going to be on NBC Sports Network as well. So, if you don't have Peacock, don't worry. If you got NBC Sports Network, you should be able to watch that game. That's really the big game for Thursday. So, yeah, that should be a fun one out there. You know, that place is going to be rocking up there at Mackey Arena.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. LaKeena hanging out here with you. Coming up, we'll have our last entry for Black History Month for Old School TV Monday. But in the meantime, in between time, LaKeena has some other sports media news and nuggets to share with you all.
Just good to cap off the Olympics. First, of course, the U.S. They ended up winning 12 gold medals. They had a team aerial gold medal that they won on Saturday. So now they've scored the most gold medals for any Winter Olympics at 12. Norway was the winner overall with 41. They also won the most gold medals. And well, the guy that helped lead the charge there is cross-country skier Johannes Oslov Klæbo. He won 6 gold medals during the 2 weeks in the various cross-country events. He actually breaks, speaking of, breaking a record, the drought for the U.S. Men's hockey team. The same year in 1980, Eric Heiden won 5 gold medals in speed skating. And so now, of course, this cross-country here from Norway, Klæbo, I think that's how you say his name. Johan Oslov Klæbo, I think that's how you say his name. He now has the lead with 6 gold medals and such. I don't know how he did it because there was some marathon ones, there were a couple of team sprint events. So just a little crazy how that works. If you're NBC, speaking of the ratings, NBC, I know the ratings. They haven't released the ratings yet for the men's hockey gold medal game. I'm sure the ratings were pretty high. But yeah, you gotta be feeling pretty good if you're, especially with the Los Angeles Olympics coming up in a couple of summers from now. A lot of those events are going to be live, so you gotta, having a good numbers here will ride the momentum if you're NBC going into the Summer Olympics coming up in a couple of years.
Yeah, as I said earlier, to kick off the show, us here in the United States, wherever sport or competition that we are in, if we're in the final round or getting close to the final round, we'll support you. And that was the case once again this year for the Winter Olympics. Besides the hockey for both the men and the women's teams, but as we talked about before, LaKeena, we'll mention it here in 2 years with the Olympics. Remember, it's in Los Angeles, and everything starts out early out there on the West Coast. We are here in Chicago. We're in the Central Time Zone, so Los Angeles is 2 hours behind us. So everything, like you said, everything is going to be live because they're on the West Coast, and your prime times schedule. Most of those events, I'm talking about for the summer games, like the gymnastics and the basketball, for sure, those are going to be live, folks. There are not going to be any tape delays, so get ready for that in a couple of years.
Should be. I think if you're NBC, yeah, you're feeling pretty good. Going into those Summer Olympics coming up in a couple of seasons. Former world number 1 and U.S. 03 U.S. Open champ Andy Roddick. ESPN made official. He is now going to be one of their new tennis analysts. They made the announcement earlier this morning. He's actually, he started off, of course, at FS1. He's been doing a lot of freelance stuff. I think he and his wife, Brooklyn Decker, did a podcast together for a little bit, but now he's going to be serving as an analyst for both match and studio coverage of both Wimbledon and the U.S. Open starting this year.
Yeah, congratulations on the new gig. You need some fresh perspective, and you need a fresh set of eyes to break down these games and these events. So, it always helps to get some new voices in there, get some new ideas in there. So we're going to see what happens.
It's going to be interesting to see, especially him and James. But I know he and him have been friends for a long time. They compete against each other. They play Davis Cup together. Are they going to be like what John and Patrick McEnroe do? Because look, those guys are even Patrick McEnroe said himself. They're both of them are getting up there in age. So it's kind of like their way of, because they've got rid of Panstraw, they got rid of Brad Gilbert as well to go a little bit younger. So this is another step of that. Bringing in a guy like Andy Wright who has a great following on social media. He's a great follow on both his Instagram and his Twitter X, and yeah, this is definitely another step to that. So we'll see how he does. I'm sure he's going to do just fine though.
Yeah. Going back to the Olympics for just a second, I read a story this morning about Lindsey Vonn. After her surgery, her leg was almost amputated. Of course, she tried to come back from that torn ACL at the beginning of the winter Olympics. Obviously, it wasn't meant to be, but after her surgery, she should be fine, but her leg was almost amputated. I was like, we get about her determination and her focus and all those attributes that make athletes like her so great, but thank goodness that she didn't have to lose her leg. Then I read that this morning. It's like, yeah. So thank goodness her leg was not amputated. She's going to be fine after this recent round of surgeries.
Yeah, it's kind of freaky when you read that and then like, oh boy. And she said herself like it was like 5 seconds, if she made like the wrong turn, she probably would have lost her
Mhm.
leg or she would have avoided injury, entirely. So skiing is really weird
Yeah.
that way. But yeah, best wishes to her and then her recovery.
Yeah, and real quick, I think I brought this up on the show one of our shows last week. I was watching that downhill skiing, LaKeena, and we talked about this. I know we definitely talked about this last week. I was watching one of those events while we were doing our show, and I said, everybody thinks watching it at home is easy. No, you're going faster than a normal car down the side street. You gotta
Mm-hmm.
hang on to your balance, keep
Mm-hmm.
straight, and hopefully you don't crash and burn. I know people watch that event to see people crash and burn, but folks, unless you're on the other side of that, you don't know what that's like. So, shout out to those skiers that they really practice all 4 years to be ready for this moment. So it's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, whether it's the alpine or the downhill or the cross country or the Nordic combined, I think whatever the case, I mean, yeah, that's not for the faint of heart. So unless you're actually good at skiing and you're in good shape, you can't do that type of stuff. And I saw going to the skating part,
Mhm.
Danny O'Shea, of course, he and his partner Ellie Cam, of course, they were a big part of the U.S. winning the team gold in the team event in figure skating. Yeah, as he was lifting her, and as they were practicing for the gala on Saturday. I'm like, no, you can't do that, folks. O'Shea's one of the best lifters in the world. So yeah, you can't do that at home, folks. You don't do that at your local
Mhm.
rink. No, don't do that. Or any of this stuff for that matter. The moguls, the snowboarding. No, that's only for the professionals.
Yep. Any last minute news and nuggets before we close out for Old School TV Monday for Black History Month?
No, let's do it because I really want to talk about the series for these next couple minutes that we got. I know we're up against it, but we're going to
Okay.
Harlem for in New York City for our last edition of the Old School TV Monday. It's really Black History Month, of course. The last week's we've been tying some Black shows and such. This time we're gonna do Where I Live. Yep, this series was created by this series was created by Michael James, of course, who will go on to who created Boy Meets World, and also Eric Van Lowe, and it lasted from 1993 to later than 1993. It came out as a miniseries replacement on TGIF, and it followed the adventures of Douglas St. Martin, a Trinidad American teenager living in, of course, in the Harlem New York City, his hardworking parents, his younger sister, his two friends, sort of the adventures and misadventures of those two friends, Reggie and Malcolm, both, of course, played by guys that we already honored their shows. Of course, Flex, who played Flex, of course, Flex Alexander, who played Reggie on there. Of course, Flex will go on to do one-on-one on the show we already did for Old School TV Monday.
Mhm.
And Malcolm Sean Baker, of course, who will go on to do Living Single, and of course VIP. We already did both those shows for Old School TV Monday.
Mhm. Yep. Support from fans and Bill Cosby helped the show get renewed for a second season. The show returned in the summer on Tuesdays after Full House, which raised the ratings temporarily. Bill Cosby then became a consultant on the series. However, the show moved to Saturday nights while debuting George as its lead-in for a second season, and the ratings were even lower than before. 8 episodes were produced for the second season, but the series was canceled after only 3 of them had been aired. LaKeena, you talked about that almost an all-star cast. Let's not forget Miss Lorraine Toussaint, who played Dougie Doug's mother on the show, Miss Marie St. Martin as well. And Sullivan Walker played James St. Martin, Dougie Doug's father as well. Watching those episodes over the weekend, LaKeena, they were very funny. Of course, Dougie Doug and his friends played basketball every Saturday. They were always losing, get their brains being in. They talked about their lives as teenagers, going to school, hanging out on the stool. And of course, Flex Alexander played the ladies' man on the show as well. But I'm not going to sit here and blame Bill Cosby for being a consultant on this series. But when that move happened, that kind of and when the network putting that show at a time where Saturday nights were not cool to stay and watch TV shows anymore. You see what it is now. I think that was kind of the downfall as well. I know they wanted to help them when they debuted on their famous TGI block back in the day, but just putting them on Saturday nights, it just didn't just didn't do it. And I know we won't get into this now because we're time pressed, but I know Dougie Doug, who's a very talented guy. Of course, we saw him in the movies Cool Runnings and of course Class Act before he got that TV show. He's been very outspoken about what's goes on behind the scenes in Hollywood. We won't get into it here because of time constraints, but if that show had a little bit more direction, maybe someone to help out Bill Cosby, then maybe that show would have lasted a couple more years. But it was what it was. It was funny for what it was, but going into the second season, it seemed like it was doomed for failure. And unfortunately, it was.
Yeah, it was one of those shows where I think it benefited because of the fact that the first season, because it came on, it came on the TGI lineup. Of course, that was still a very big juggernaut at the time, and it was kind of like it was a little bit of 227. It was a little bit of maybe Moesha before, or like year before that show premiered. So it was definitely the combination of that. Of course, Yunaka Doyle. Of course, if you guys remember, she was on the original Star Search, was a grand champion there. She got into some acting as well, did some acting stuff. This was her first big foray into after she started audition for acting roles. And I think it was one of those things where reading that about Bill Cosby, it was sort of like, I know they got a little bit of a raise, but like you said, because it came on on Tuesdays for a couple of weeks after Full House, but then it got relegated to Saturday nights, and by that point, we know about we talk about the Golden Girls and 227 because we did those shows already for Old School TV. My notes, those shows came on Saturdays, even Fast Life as well in their later seasons, but by that point, like you said, it was kind of like people started getting access to cable. The show, it wasn't cool to be on be a live scripted show on Saturdays anymore. So it kind of sort of downward spiral. And I think there might have been some stuff there where I know Dougie Doug and Cosby would work together to do the more blue collar Cosby will do that show at some point for Old School TV Monday down the line. But yeah, it makes you wonder that, like we talked about some of the shows that we talked about with some of the shows, some of these black shows and other shows too in the last few years, if they had a direction and agreed on the direction of where to get these shows, maybe this show could last maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 years, but it wasn't the case. And it was just one of those things where you're just like, you kind of like, it's kind of a head scratcher. This was definitely a head scratcher, I would say, in my opinion.
Yeah. So for our last entry into Old School TV Monday for Black History Month 2026, we salute the ABC TV sitcom short-lived Where I Live. LaKeena, take us home.
And some of the episodes are all on YouTube, so if you guys want to check those out, they're right there as well. Yeah, I think about 15 of the episodes. Like you said, 5 of them did not air, unfortunately. But I know most of this. I know most of the first season. I think the second season that did air are on YouTube. So you guys can check that out. Yes. It's the type of Where I Live TV series, and a lot of the episodes will show up right there on the feed on your YouTube feed. So it's all right there for you. With that said, you can follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, again the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidK80. Once again, it's SidK80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And if you miss a segment, if you miss whether we do our NFL picks or our picks for the MLB season, or guests or anything else in between, catch the replay anytime, anywhere on the Sports YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
All right, enjoy these last couple of weeks of the college hoop season. There's some great matches. We talked about that coming up. Of course, enjoy the spring training baseball, the World Baseball Classic. If you're going to watch the Combine, we'll talk a little bit about that too. So if you want to check it out on the NFL Network, on ESPN as well, you'll go ahead as well. And all of you out there in the Northeast, the Northeaster, be safe out there, and don't go outside unless you absolutely have to. So be safe out there, folks. And Forston, I'm LaKeena with Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
Holla!